Hi, my name is Gil Robertson, president of the African American Film Critics Association. Today, we're thrilled to be talking to the director of the upcoming HBO Max documentary, Katrina Babies. Joining us today are AAFCA members Jill Monroe in Los Angeles, Nancy Green in Baltimore, Karan Lenoir in Charlottesville, Virginia, Rhonda Rasha Penrice in Atlanta, but from Atlanta, but in LA. Katia Woods, our facilitator in Philadelphia, and Reggie Pounder in Chicago, and Ray Cornelius also in Atlanta. I'm gonna let you guys do what you do so well, and I will see you on the other side.
We woke up and my mama was all over the place. Like, yo, we leaving. Like, yo, like, I'm not asking you, I'm telling you.
Since the storm, it seems like everybody just moved on. In America, especially during disaster, Black children are not even a thought.
Have you ever, like, talked about this before?
No, I haven't.
Why you think?
I don't know, nobody didn't really ask me.
Hurricane Katrina caused one of the biggest disbursements of Black people in history.
After losing so much, why wouldn't anyone ask if we were okay? Nobody ever asked the children how they were doing. So I am.
Katrina Babies, take one.
One can't explain, nor can
Friday, I was at school walking the hallways with my friends. By Monday, I was on top of fucking roof.
Everything you consider as part of who you are was reduced to a trash bag.
Am I gonna die? I don't know. I just was like, I'm not supposed to be here.
The New Orleans that we knew was gone. When I got back after Katrina, I naively thought that everything was going to be normal again.
The feel of community in New Orleans is different now.
Your neighborhood was crucial to who you were. What we knew to be true is gone. Think about what that does to a community. It destabilizes it.
I feel like nobody should be that young going through shit like that.
They're in home and they don't feel safe. What does that do to our children? It wreaks havoc on their well-being.
I can't breathe.
Katrina is becoming a folktale, and we're the storytellers.
Resilience is when you still find a way to have your head up and help yourself. Sometimes I feel like resilience is used as a tool because they want people to think, oh no, everything is okay. These people are good, like they're strong. Look at how much they've overcome. It's for me to say when I'm resilient. It's for me to say what is resilient. It's not for you.
Being able to tell my Katrina story has been part of my healing process.
Even though we are resilient, we can never get back what was lost.
A concrete rose, will it grow?
Hi, Edward. My name is Reggie Ponder. I'm out of Chicago. And first thing I want to say is just thank you for doing this piece. We've had some pre-discussion about the fact that you would ask the children about this. And my question to you is, it's kind of broad, so if it's only one or two, then you can do that, is what lessons did you learn from doing this piece?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you all for having me here. I'm super honored and thrilled to be speaking with you all on such a platform. It's very validating and very refreshing to, you know, be in a room like this and see a room like this, you know, in this industry. So super happy to be here. You know, I learned so much, you know. I'm still learning to this day, you know. I'm learning during press. I've learned so much about myself and about my community when I you know, was working on this film. And one of the biggest things that I learned is just like as a people, how much trauma we're storing inside of us, and you know, how that stuff is not being addressed, and like what happens when it is not addressed, right? I think that specifically with Hurricane Katrina and with all of the complex trauma that we're dealing with, you know, in disenfranchised communities in New Orleans specifically, I think that our trauma has been surfacing, you know, since the day after the storm up until today. So I just learned of, you know, about, you know, those types of things. And I also learned, you know, about the importance of getting it out. And just so happened with this story, we started that process of starting that conversation. And, you know, sometimes that starts a process to healing. And that was something that I learned, because I didn't know that simply talking about something could offer you a pathway, you know, towards healing. So I'm still learning things. You know, I learned about the names and the terminology of certain trauma. So I was able to name stuff. So like, you know, when you can name it, you can fight for yourself, right? You know, and like I'm trying to fight for a whole community. So when I was able to learn those things, like, you know, it gave me more armor in this fight, you know, for my people.
Hey, Edward, Ray Cornelius here with Upfront Inside Atlanta's entertainment industry. Totally loved this film, and I think it's something that's very much needed conversations. The one guest that you had, I believe, that really stood out, and I wanted to know a little bit more, was the young man who became the face of Hurricane Katrina, but he is now transgender. I love that you included that. Can we talk about him a little, or her a little bit more?
Yeah, Ariana, I had a long conversation with Ariana on yesterday, because we were trying to get her to come to the premiere in New Orleans. But, you know, she's not here right now, and she's in Denver, and she's working. But, you know, it was a no-brainer. It was a no-brainer when I first came up with this idea to tell the stories of Hurricane Katrina and children of Hurricane Katrina. You can't forget about that kid that, you know, has his face in the camera with a SpongeBob t-shirt on. And when you Google children of Katrina, right? When you Google that, that's the first kid that pops up, you know? So that's kind of what happened with me. You know, I was doing research, and, you know, I Googled children of Katrina, or like maybe like something like that. And Charles Evans popped up, and, you know, I went to Facebook, and, you know, I said, hey, yo, I'm looking for this kid. If anybody can, you know, can like connect me, let me know. And that's when Ariana introduced herself to me, and we kind of just went on from there. And like, it was very important for me to allow her to tell her story, because of the fact that, you know, Ariana has been doing press since she was what 9, right? She was 9 years old during the storm. She's been doing press every year. Like someone wants to do a follow-up on her every year, but it has never been from home, right? Which means that it's not being taken care of in the same way that, like, you know, somebody from home would do it. So I wanted to give her this platform to really share her story. And like, I wanted to give her flowers for like what she did for us, because what I'm trying to do for young New Orleans, she was doing at 9 years old. And that was, you know, that was just really heroic to me. So I had to include her.
Hi, I'm Nancy Green with Film Critique. Really good documentary. And one of the things that I was curious about is, you know, I found it very striking that a lot of people that you spoke to, they said that they were never asked about how they felt. And so I wanted to know, in your research and with them, what do you think has been done in terms of people's mental health and dealing with all of that? And what do you think could be done?
Yeah, thank you for that question. It's obviously a through line in this film, and that wasn't intentional. When I first started making this film, I didn't know that. You know, I didn't know that, you know, these children had not been asked about this before. I learned that, you know, as everybody kept saying it, and like everybody said it in their own way. And when Maisha first broke down and like started crying after she said that, that's when it really hit me. And like, you know, it kind of seeded me, but it also added validation to this journey, right? You know, it also added more fuel that like I was not only getting my peer stories, but it was their first time talking about it. And, you know, to answer your question about what has been done about it, sadly, I don't feel like much. You know, I think that this film and like this story has, you know, it's offered the opportunity for what we have about 15 people in the documentary. Like, so it's offered the opportunity for about 15 people to, you know, tell their story and, you know, begin that process of healing. But I think that if we're talking about it in general, I don't think much has been done. Like, there's still not plans being you know, implemented when it comes to dealing with, you know, mental health and trauma, not just from Katrina, but again, from everything else that we're dealing with, you know, in our community. So that's kind of what I'm hoping that this film could inspire, is that we need to not only address the trauma of Hurricane Katrina, but just like address the traumas and like, the experience of being like Black in America, and like all of the like complex trauma that we deal with. Because sadly, when I taught high school, for 5 years, like, yes, I was telling this story and I was seeking healing on my own, but no one was paying attention to them. Right. So that made me even more upset, because I'm like, like once you feel like you're taking, like 2 steps up, you get pulled back. So yeah, like sadly, nothing is like, not much is happening if you're asking from my experience and my perspective. Mm-hmm. But can I say one last thing?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But what I do think has changed is, as individuals, we are seeking it more. As individuals, we are looking to help ourselves more. We are seeking out wellness. We want to feel better. We want to, address our trauma and, heal our wounds. But I think that from a systemic level and like even in education, I don't think much is being done.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. And thank you. It's great.
Thank you, Nancy.
Hi, Joe Monroe, Access to the Life. Edward, I want to ask how you went about picking the participants for this film. Obviously, your family is heavily involved and featured, and their story, but how did you decide who you wanted to include? And because many lost everything, how were you able to verify some of the stories that maybe weren't featured in the news and so forth?
That's a great question. Honestly, Facebook was my best friend. Like, when I first started off this project, I got this idea when I was 20 years old. And I had experienced a little bit of life, but I still had so much to experience and learn. So it was a little bit intimidating to make a film like this. I started physically making this film when I was 23 years old. And I finished it when I was 30. So I spent all of my 20s working on this project. So when I first came up with the idea, I was like, okay, now I got to find the people. Now I got to find the stories, because believe it or not, my cousins were some of the last people that I interviewed in year 6 of making this documentary. Because like, I was scared to face it. I was scared to face it, So what I did first was I went to Facebook and like I made a post and I was like, I want to do a story about the children who experienced Hurricane Katrina, and I want to hear like how y'all are today. And it was just this overwhelming response. It was like at least 25 to 30 people who wanted to share their stories, and that was a lot to me, and literally I let all of them come, and we all met at this art gallery, and I just did like what I realized was just some like, it was like development, and like we just talked about some of the stories like on the surface, and then after that I took some of those and like I followed up with them throughout the years, and that was the initial process to finding my subjects, and most of them are my friends. That's why these stories are told with so much trust and comfort, and it's told so freely because they actually trusted me with the narratives, and then as I lived a little bit more, I began to find more of my subjects in the film. So like once I became a high school teacher, like it was just so clear to me why I was making this film. That was really what validated this process, and like that was when I really realized that the Katrina babies wasn't just people who were my age. And some of the Katrina babies weren't even born during the storm, right? And, I knew that I had to also, include my students. So it was a range of, strategies that strategies and real life that led me to, casting for this documentary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Edward. I'm Karan from Karanism.com. And it took you 7 years to complete this documentary. That's a lot of time in your young years. So my first question is, how does it feel to call yourself filmmaker? And my second question is, I love the way you use art to move the story forward and history. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you integrated the art throughout the different, actually now decades since Katrina?
Yeah. Yeah, like I love that question so much because I took a very non-linear path to filmmaking, right? I didn't have a father who was a filmmaker. I didn't really know much about filmmaking. I didn't even know that it was a possibility, growing up. So to sit here today and to be like interview as a filmmaker, at this level, it's still like it's not even a childhood dream because I didn't know it was possible. So like it's surreal, right? I feel blessed, to be, using my platform like this. I'm a vessel, and like I feel blessed to be using film as that vehicle. Honestly, I think that. What's the second question?
About how you use the beautiful art that was used to tell a lot of the story and to move it forward, the art and the music. How did all that come together for you?
Yeah, so my mentor, Chike Oza, who is half of Kudi and Chike, he's from New Orleans. And like I said, I took a very non-linear path to filmmaking. So I didn't really have many people to look to. And well, I'll say this. And this is going to totally sound like I'm contradicting what I just said, but Tyler Perry is my cousin, right? Right? He's my cousin, but at the time he was doing plays, right? He was doing plays like, at the time that like I was growing up. So he hadn't began to make the movies yet. And plus, like, he was kind of like distant from us because like he was always moving around. So Chike was the first person that I was able to touch. And like, I was able to like actually talk with face to face. And, he just started to pour everything that he knew into me. And one of those things was exposing me to fine art. And exposing me to the power of art and like, how art can be used and has been used to tell stories. And he's a producer on this project. And, a few years ago, he and I were talking about the power of animation in filmmaking, and he had used animation like a lot. And we understood that we can use animation to create a language to tell these very difficult stories and like make viewers, more receptive and more vulnerable and make them receive it, I guess, lighter, if that's the term, right? And we knew that like, animation could do that paired with the fact that, a lot of this stuff we don't have footage for, right? So, and if you combine that with our like very, sometimes annoying stylistic, minds, we wanted to get like, like a fire animator. And, he and I were a really big fan of this one animator named Anthony Sindra, who's based in Spain. And like all of our, collaboration happened on Zoom calls. So like that says like a lot about his instincts and like his emotions, his heart, and like his storytelling. So we knew that we wanted to use him, and we wanted to use a collage style, so that we can use old family photos and like family photos that were savage from Hurricane Katrina and like purpose them. So, when you see Tina as an animated character, those photos like that you see, that's real photos of her, so it adds a different level of emotion and like it makes it that much more special. And, we just think that it added so much style and like just heart and spirit to the film. And I'm very proud of it.
Congratulations. It added a beautiful layer to the storytelling, and it did lighten the load just a bit because it is such a heavy subject and such a heavy time. But yeah. I'm just so glad you were obedient and you followed through. Beautiful contribution. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hi, Katya Woods, Couple Social and the Philadelphia Tribune. I think this movie is really, really important because it's about a bigger conversation, which is still going on in the state of Louisiana. How is all of this piecing in? Did you make the collation towards what's going on in Louisiana with the conservative stands, with the stands of education, and not, again, taking into account that the state and the city has a responsibility to take care of all the children, not just some of the kids? Have you had that conversation, how the state and the city has failed to take care of all of their kids when this tragedy occurred?
I mean, yes, that's a great question. And that's something that, I kind of want to speak to a lot in press and, on my platform, because teaching high school for 5 years, like I was able to see the inside of that system. Like I taught at the same high school that I graduated from. And, you know, to see both of those sides like of the coin, you know, it was really interesting, you know, some of the unjust, experiences that I had in high school, I was able to contextualize it and like learn why that was once I became a teacher, right? And you know, I think that like something that's interesting, and you know, I'm not like a politician or like an expert on this, but I can talk about, I can speak from my experience. One of the most interesting things about making this project was how much didn't change from when I was a child to when I became a teacher, and like how much my students echoed at what I experienced, you know? And that was when like it kind of really became real for me. I'm like, yo, like these things aren't being addressed. And, you know, I heard this quote one time that somebody said, I believe it was Kathleen Whelan, and I interviewed, you know, her for this project. And she said that Louisiana believes that every child could learn, but they don't believe that every child could behave. What does that mean, right? What does that mean? And to me, it's like when a kid can't learn, we're quick to, you know, throw them in these classes to like, you know, make them learn and like, you know, put them on a path to learning. But when they can't behave, we write them up and put them out of school. You know, like when they can't behave, we chastise them and we discipline them. So like what I learned is that, you know, Louisiana has to start not just Louisiana, but just specifically talking about my experience, we have to start operating with a trauma lens. You know, we can't, you know, understand that our kids dealt with trauma, but then not address it. And we deem them bad when they react. And like, you know, when their trauma surfaces. And, you know, I just think that, you know, I've been saying this for like a very long time. You know, I think that, you know, these kids, no matter like what's going on, like no matter if it's violence, no matter if it's, you know, disobeying authority, we can't just call them bad. You know, we got to meet them in the middle and like understand that they're dealing with unhealed wounds, you know, and until we do that, we're all doing ourselves, you know, a disservice, because like at the end of the day, I don't care what you say about the children. These are our future voters. These are our future, you know, business owners. These are our future, you know, they are our future. Right. So I think that until we start addressing like what they're going through, we're going to be dealing with what we're dealing with, you know, in our society.
Hey, Edward. Interestingly, was HBO the only like outlet for the doc? And what was that process like? Was there anything that you had to compromise on, or are you pretty satisfied that your vision got all the way through?
Yeah. You know, when I when I first started making this film, I didn't have many expectations when it came to distribution. When people used to ask me, what are you going to do with this project? I was like, oh, I'm gonna put it up on YouTube and I'm gonna put it in some libraries, you know? And that was my goal for it. And, you know, as I kept making this film, you know, and like as the years went by, Chike Ozai, my mentor, again, he kept checking in every year, like, yo, are you almost done the film? Are you almost done the film? Bro, how long does it take to make a documentary? So every year he was checking in on me. And then the pandemic happened. And when the pandemic happened, you know, work stopped for me, you know, because like I was in the commercial and music video space, and, you know, I had just stopped teaching, and he called me up this year and like, he was like, hey, you know, we're doing this project with Time Studios of Time Magazine. And I told them about your project. They're interested in meeting with you. So I was like, okay, but I'm not ready yet. Like, you know, it's not done. Like, you know, I still got a few more years. He was like, bro, stop playing. And like, let's meet with them. And like, you know, he was just like, studios are looking for projects that are shot now because like, you know, because of the pandemic, we can't shoot. You have everything shot. Stop being scared and like, let's put it out there. So I took the meeting, Time became interested, and we set up a pitch circuit. You know, we set up a process where we were going to pitch to all of these different studios. It was my very first pitch. You know, I had never been in one of those, you know, like one of those circuits or whatever. So they asked who I wanted to meet with, and like HBO was somebody I had put on my vision board, you know, like when I was younger, and like, you know, I told them HBO. So we had one other pitch before that, and they passed on it. And then our second pitch was HBO, and they wanted it in the room. You know, it was no back and forth. As soon as I pitched it to them in the room, it was like, we want this. We want to work with you on this. To answer your question about compromise, they were great partners, and like, I'm not just saying that. Yeah, and you know, I'm not just saying that like because they are my partners. You know, I think that it's important that, you know, as we are getting, you know, into these world of telling more diverse stories, you know, specifically Black stories, it's important that people who want to partner with us know when they should be on our side, and then also know when they should stand behind us. And HBO did that greatly. You know, they never inserted themselves when it was like unwanted. They always, you know, offered feedback but never forced it upon me, and they didn't make any of their notes mandatory. You know, so honestly, they were great partners, and like, you know, I feel blessed that this is my first film and I didn't have to compromise much. The only thing that I did have to compromise was, you know, it was within myself, and I wanted to keep shooting and like, you know, like keep shooting and like keep this going. But, you know, it was good that I pulled out when I did. But I feel blessed that, you know, as a first-time filmmaker, you know, I didn't have to deal with like some of the compromises that like, you know, a lot of first-time filmmakers have to deal with. And like, you know, I empathize with them, and I just want them, you know, I want to, you know, encourage them to, you know, just like stand your ground and like, you know, like hold your ground, like when it comes to your art and like your work. I don't care how young you are, you know your story, especially when it's personal. And I'm glad that HBO understood that and like allowed me to lead with my personal experience.
Yes, I was impressed with the HBO Max New Orleans event for you. So
absolutely, thank you, thank you,
Edward. This question is about the ending. In the end, you deconstruct where you have been telling us this story from, and because you do everything purposeful in this, talk about the multiple meanings behind what you did there.
Every year, every single year, in August during the anniversary of Hurricane Katrina, you know, these people get on the news and there's these specials about how New Orleans is rebuilt and about how New Orleans is back. And like New Orleans is, you know, their people are so resilient. Look at them second line in the street, you know, look how happy they are. Like, you know, look at the tourism industry booming. And when it came to deconstructing that set, that viewers thought that, you know, I was at home all of that time, right? And what's interesting is that that's the spot that grounds the viewer. It grounds the audience. Like you feel comfortable, you feel safe, you feel warm. And you might even say, well, at least he still has his home, you know? And one of the points that like, you know, I wanted to make was that what we lost is way deeper than physical. You know, what we lost, you know, it can be physically rebuilt, but it's always going to be torn down. You know, like it's like what was torn down, we can never get back. And when you say that we are rebuilt, are you just talking about physical things? Because like, to be real, you know, year after year, you know, after Katrina, y'all are fixing all the physical things. And yes, New Orleans is booming and we are $1 billion tourism industry. But how does Maisha say in 2018 that this is her first time sharing her story? You know, so it's like, you know, how are we rebuilding our people? You know, how are we rebuilding and not patching, but healing these wounds that we are dealing with after Katrina? So I just wanted to, you know, kind of make that nod to, you know, it's like, I don't care how much y'all say that we are rebuilt. What we lost, we can never get back. And, you know, I think that somebody pointed this out to me and like, this was not intentional and on purpose, but one of my best friends, Ejaz Mason, he said, bro, it was so powerful how you had white people come and tear down your set and take everything from you. And I was like, wow. I was like, damn, that's true. Like, you know, because like, yeah, so yeah, like, you know, I think that people are taking different things from it. But yes, that was intentional. And believe it or not, it took us a while to crack that, you know, because it was such a delicate, move, and like it was so bold that literally we didn't crack that until the last month of the edit. So I'm glad that it's reading, and I'm glad that it's working.
Hi. I wanted to know what is some of the footage that you left out, if you can talk a bit about that.
Yeah, you know, when you work on a project like this that deals with so much trauma, and when you deals with so much pain and just real life trauma that people are still experiencing today, it's like you have to be careful with it, you know. And you know, I had a different responsibility because like these were my people, you know, these are my loved ones, like it's my family, it's my friends. So I left like a lot of stuff out, like, you know, to the point where it's like I can't even really speak about all of it. But, you know, there were moments like in this, you know, in these interviews where, you know, I just had to, you know, kind of check myself and be like, yo, you're not just a filmmaker, you know. And one of the problems that like we had with people who come and tell our stories is that they always want to get like the most graphic stuff, and like, you know, they use that to call themselves great filmmakers, and they use that to, you know, evoke emotion. So there was moments like that because again, like people shared everything with me, like you know, people didn't have much resistance. So, you know, I just had like a different responsibility of like making sure that I was not exploiting, you know. So like I left like a lot of those moments out. And again, like I don't want to call it out because like that was the whole point of leaving, like leaving them out. When it comes to some of the archival, I put some of this archival in there, but archival was another tricky thing because like, you know, while this archival works for the purposes of this film, that same archival can be dangerous in the hands of another artist or like another filmmaker or journalist or like reporter, right? You know, so that was disturbing archival that like I saw of like how we were being spoken about. You know, us being called refugees, right? You know, us being called criminals because we were, you know, breaking into stores to get food that no one else was airdropping, or supplying. So I was really careful with that footage because I do understand that there's power in correcting it, but there's also power in putting it back out there without context. So those were some of the responsibilities that I found when it came to, you know, just image and like, you know, picture. And, you know, I learned that in the process, like, just like the power of representation, you know, and I hope that I did well with it.
You did. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Edward, you talked about your journey to put this together. What did you learn about filmmaking over the course of these 6 or 7 years in storytelling? Because I'm sure what you said your vision was just you wanted to make it and maybe put it on YouTube, but I'm sure it changed as far as certain elements over the course of that time. So
yeah, you know, when you're in film school, and let's just be clear, film is a very elite industry. It's a very elite art form, and you know, it's for the longest time, it was dominated by white, like old white men. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just a fact, you know. And you know, it's intimidating when you don't have like budgets. It's intimidating when you don't have access to the best camera and the best equipment. It's intimidating when, you know, you don't know terminology, right? So, you know, it's those things are intimidating. But what I learned to love was the beauty and imperfection, and the beauty in not having access to those things, and like and leading with story. You know, I in 2014 I interned for Spike Lee on Old Boy in New Orleans. I was attending Dillard University, a HBCU in New Orleans. And one piece of advice that he gave me, you know, when speaking with him, he was like, you know, lead with story. Like, you know, find a great story, you know. And like Chike Ozai also told me the same thing, lead with story, you know, and like, don't worry about having like the best equipment now. And once I started to lean on that, and, you know, you can see it in the film, because like in the film, there's moments where I go take one, you know, or like I'm using my hands to slate. And that was intentional because like, I wanted people to, you know, to be inspired by how much of a guerrilla process this was. Like, you know, I didn't have the equipment. Like this project was self-funded. You know, I didn't get funding until year 6 when I began to edit. So it was completely like self-funded with like the help of like maybe like a few crowdfunding campaigns. But you know, what I learned the most is that if you lead with story, your journey would, like, your path will work itself out. And like I also learned about working across and not always looking to work up. I think that, like, I learned this when, I started, talking to my peers, and when, I was working with my peers and like not trying to, hire the people who had the most experience. So, that's just like one of those pieces of advice that like I want to give to young people who don't come from, a film background, or like who don't have experience with knowing somebody like in the family who's a filmmaker. Like, lead with story, use what you have, and work across with who you have.
Thank you.
And I also learned terminology at while making this film at Dillon University, which changed everything. Like, me knowing how to, like speak about film and, speak on jobs, it definitely helped out a lot. So I definitely encourage that.
Thank you.
Edward, so where's the joy? This is Karan again. Where's the joy? Tell me where you found spots of light and joy during this 7 years. This was a long haul about a very, very deep subject. There had to be some joy to carry with that sadness.
Yeah, I found joy in a few places, honestly. I think that, being from New Orleans, it's like you can walk outside and see joy. You can walk outside and, see like the beauty of your people, see the spirit of your people. And like, that's always inspiring. So, joy is kind of instilled inside of me, and like, I always know how to go and grab it. So that's one way. And then, another piece of joy was, as I was making this film, just feeling validated and like feeling heard, when I'm speaking with my peers, and like when I'm speaking with my family, and like, them feeling like they're starting a journey to healing. And that brought me joy. Like, as hard as it was to hear these stories, every single text that I get where like they say, yo, thank you for talking to me about that. I never even thought about that. That's joy. That gives me joy, because like now I know, even if it's one person, even if it's two people, I am, being a vessel to help some people start their process to heal and like start their journey to healing. So, when it comes to filmmaking, that was like a lot of joy even today, like when like my whole city is validating this project. Cause like, New Orleans, we're hard on like how we are represented in media. We're hard with, stories that are being told by us. So to see how happy everyone is, and to be getting, all of these flowers and people just thanking me for, setting this pathway and pipeline to healing, that gives me joy. And then, just outside of that, on like a really personal level, is what this film has done for me and my family, whose dynamic was disrupted by Katrina. I think that this film has like allowed us to want to restart the rebuilding of our family dynamic. So we've been in like a group chat making jokes, and we've been doing family trips, and like I think that first visit, that our second visit to Shreveport was what started that. So I give this film and like this process the credit to rebuilding, my family dynamic. And that was where my first joy was ever even discovered. So it's dope to have that back.
Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Edward, it's Kathy again. My grandmother's from Port LaHash, Louisiana. Mm-hmm. So when Katrina happened, like, obviously she was upset, and she was upset about family, and, they had to rebuild my great-grandfather's house and everything. But the overall consensus with her was like, okay, we got to pull ourselves up by the boots. Like, she immediately knew this was going to be an us, not a they type of thing. So how many of those kids are descendant of between Betsy and all these other hurricanes and the continuously? Because that seems to be something that is very evident also by older people in New Orleans teaching the younger generation, like especially the younger Black generation, like we've got, you know what I mean? So can you speak a little bit about that? Because a lot of people were like, why wasn't naturally FEMA, so-and-so, and all these people doing more? But they knew, like the Black people, the descendants, your grandparents, and all of them knew, like, ain't nobody coming to save us.
Yeah. Now, let me just say that the question that you asked about the responsibility of FEMA and, you know, the government is still valid, right? But I think that it goes into this double-edged sword of resilience, right, that I bring up in the film. I want to answer this question by like, you know, like telling like a story that like happened to me recently. Is that okay?
Yeah, do you?
You know, I've never seen my father cry, ever. I've never seen my father cry, like ever in my life, until about 2 months ago at the Tribeca Film Festival while he was watching this film. And after you know, after the film, you know, like maybe the next day, he apologized to me and like he said, "Yo, you're right. You know, I never asked you, or or your sisters how y'all felt. I apologize." And you know, then he went on to say, you know, "I never asked y'all because no one ever asked me about Hurricane Betsy." You know, and that just hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, and you know, now we're dealing with intergenerational things here, right? Like intergenerational trauma, like what he learned or like what he didn't learn is now being passed on to his kids. So our parents are not the ones to blame. And just like, you know, going into, you know, we go be all right, you know, like, you know, we go make this happen for ourselves. We're going to help ourselves. We're going to save ourselves. And that is honorable. You know, I want us to hold on to that. Like, you know, I want us as a people to be very proud of that, be proud of our resilience, celebrate our strength. But on the other end of that, let me be proud of it. My resilience is my resilience. It's not for y'all to call me resilient. You know, resilience is not in your hands. Right? It's when I call myself resilient, because like what happens is when the other people start calling us resilient, those who should be held accountable, they just lean on our strength. And it's like, well, look at them. They're good. You know, they're happy. They bounce back. They are rebuilt, you know, like they all help themselves every year. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, so we don't need to do much. And, you know, I think that, you know, that echoes from slavery. And, you know, like a lot of people don't want to hear that, but it does, you know, like it that idea of we are strong, we can take the worst of the worst, you know, we can take the worst trauma, the worst beatings, like, and we are good. Like, we're still strong. We're still singing. We're still dancing. We're still thriving. We're still helping ourselves. And I just think that, you know, as a people, specifically in New Orleans, like, you know, one thing that, like I said during Hurricane Ida last year is that, yeah, we resilient, but we also tired. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, give us the right conditions, like, you know, give us the right resources, help us. You know what I'm saying? Like, we can't just keep on helping ourselves. No, we will keep on helping ourselves, but like, it is our right to also have government assistance and government help.
100%. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, on that, like my family's from Mississippi nearby. And when I heard that 55 was only going one way, and this was before like the news, the national news was telling you the severity of what was happening in New Orleans. But as a result of Katrina, we have New Orleans culture all around. I live in Atlanta, and there was a great influx of people from New Orleans. So I'm curious, are you planning to do a follow-up to show how widely the New Orleans culture has expanded post-Katrina?
That's a great question, because like, once I started traveling, that was when I really realized, you know, how many Katrina survivors are all across this country. And like, I was blown away, because like, I was meeting, like no matter where I show this film, no matter where I speak about this film at, there's somebody who experienced Hurricane Katrina that's there. I was in Martha's Vineyard last week, showing the film, and there were so many people from New Orleans there, like so many people who had never talked, like told their story, or like, you know, spoken about their story. So yes, you know, we are spread everywhere. You know, in the film, you know, I make the statement that, you know, Hurricane Katrina caused one of the, you know, biggest disbursement of like a Black community. You know what I'm saying? Like in our history, you know, it's like we are everywhere. You know, my cousin Tina is still in Shreveport, and like, she considers herself still displaced, you know, like, because she's not home and like, she can't move back. So, you know, is there a follow-up? Right now, there isn't, but I do want to, like, you know, continue to use my platform to speak about that for sure.
Edward, on behalf of the world's largest group of Black film critics, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
We love this documentary, and we certainly are looking forward to more work from you.
Absolutely. Thank every last one of y'all. Y'all please keep me in your network. on like all my other future films, I definitely want to do this. So it was such a pleasure meeting all of y'all.
You as well. Thank you.
You as well. God bless.
Well, it's funny that Chike was rushing you when he literally did a project that took a lifetime.
21 years. Well, maybe like that's why he was rushing me. He was like, don't be me.